Hey, grade nines. We're moving on in probability, and we're going to start talking about some of the problems you might run into when dealing with collecting data. Collecting data is a really big part of probability. It helps us understand the experimental probability a bit better, and then compare it to theoretical. But you have to be careful with the way that you collect your data, because there's some issues that you're going to run into that you need to be aware of when you're collecting that data. So I've actually just stepped away from the camera, but we're going to look at some of the things that you might run into. We're going to put some definitions down and some examples so that you can see through them. What we're going to look at are bias. We kind of talked about that last lesson. Language, timing, privacy, cultural sensitivity, ethics, cost, and time. Okay, so the first one we're going to look at is bias. The question influences in favor of or against the actual topic. An example, you might have seen this one around, is if someone says, if we're looking at face masks, aren't face masks just a money grab? Well, I'm implying that they're a money grab. So as a person asking, I have a bias, which isn't fair because it might influence your response. Especially if this survey or this data collection was done in person. If I'm standing right up close to you and it's like, isn't this just a money grab? Well, you might be intimidated. You might just feel reluctant to agree with me, to shut me up. All of those are fair points. You're using bias to influence your response in one way or another. Okay, so the language part, it's a bit strange to say the definition. It's basically the language could influence people. You could influence bias, or you could just be influencing people with the words that you use. For example, if I was collecting data on people's favorite teachers and I said, don't you think Mr. K is the best teacher? Well, ignoring the fact that it's true, the words that I've used might influence the way that you come to a solution. I used the word don't to start, which is a contraction for do not. So immediately I'm implying that if you do not think that Mr. K is the best teacher, you're immediately agreeing with me, the person doing the data collection. And that, again, might be intimidating, or it might put you off from picking a valid response or picking a fair response. The language that would be better used would be if I had selected a data collection model where I'm asking the person, I'm asking you, who do you think is the best teacher? It's open-ended and it gives you an opportunity to pick whoever you want, and I'm not influencing you one way or another with the language. But asking something like, don't you think Mr. K is the best teacher? That doesn't cut it, because you're putting subjects into the equation, and that just isn't fair. It's not good data collection. Our third one is timing. So when you ask a question could influence the way that a survey or data collection goes. For example, if I ask you right now, should malls play Christmas music? You may or may not be indifferent to what a mall plays. For one, with current times, we haven't actually really been to malls so much that if it's an opportunity for you to get out, might feel like, who cares? At least I can go to the mall, right? If this was Christmas time or a couple of weeks prior to Christmas and you've been going to the mall quite frequently doing your Christmas shopping and such, and all you've heard is Christmas music, well, malls playing Christmas music might be starting to tick you off a little bit. So the timing of asking that question could influence the results a little bit. Hopefully you can read this, otherwise this whole experiment was a bit of a fail. Either way, fourth one is privacy. So the topic of data collection, it could be too personal and it could influence invalid results. Sometimes anonymity could help. So if you can make a survey or some data collection model where the person doesn't have to present who they are, that could help them in giving you more valid responses. An example is using the favorite teacher question. If you're interviewing people to tell you about their favorite teacher, that's really tough. Like, imagine if I was doing the interview for who your favorite teacher was. That'd be really difficult for you to pick somebody else, because you know absolutely I'm going to fail you if you do that. But if I gave you a survey and it was totally anonymous, and you could write whoever's name you wanted to, and I would never know who you were, then you're more likely to give me an honest response, and I'm not violating your privacy. So you gotta be really careful that you're not violating someone's privacy. You gotta take a step back and think about it, because people might not tell you, And if they don't tell you, they might still complete your survey and give you invalid results.